The National Union of Metal Workers and employer organisations CIFSA were locked in talks into this evening to try and end the 2-week strike in the metals and manufacturing sector, with NUMSA threatening to intensify its action.
But already CIFSA's improved offer to NUMSA, which would see a 10% wage increase this year, has been labelled unaffordable by the National Employers Association, which represents many of the smaller companies in the sector. Joining us on News Leader tonight with more is NEASA's Chief Executive, Gerhard Papenfus. Thanks so much, Gerhard, for joining us in studio. Well, NEASA has been very critical of the way CIFSA has been handling negotiations. You've said that they're negotiating the industry into extinction. You've said that this is their test as well. Are they failing at these talks?
Perhaps one must look at it who they represent. CIFSA has within their ranks a couple of seriously big companies. And perhaps they are able, these companies, to afford or accommodate, digest these increases. But smaller business, small business, is in the bottom of the chain, manufacturing chain, and where these companies operate, you can only pass on an increase to the customer, and that's where competition is rife. That's where manufacturing is happening overseas. And so we cannot. I mean, this industry is under severe pressure.
Well, Gerhard, I mean, I would argue that some of the larger companies aren't very profitable either and may not be able to afford big increases, whereas you might get some profitable smaller companies. Practically, though, when you have a number of employer bodies negotiating, can you find a one-size-fits-all for all of the companies in the sector?
Well, I think that's where the problem starts. We're not actually supposed to be in the same forum. One of our demands coming in these negotiations was to negotiate in separate forums. I think NUMSA knows where their salvation lies. So if we left that room, we would have sat there alone.
You're not in that room tonight, though, are you?
No, I'm not in that room tonight. NUMSA has given up negotiating with us. They simply do not want to entertain what we demand. And be very clear at this stage, unless we have a deal, even our 8% offer is subject to an agreement on a lower entry-level wage on the lowest level. We owe that to South Africa. And secondly, we want a more flexible system. Currently, a deal is struck in Johannesburg between big companies, and simply extend it eventually to smaller companies in the rural areas. That's not working. How can employers employing 10 and 20,000 employees make a deal and extend that deal with exactly the same conditions of employment to an employer in Kakamas employing 5 people?
Of course, that's just one of the concerns on the table.
Yeah.
What it also points to is dangerous precedents being set. You've drawn emphasis to CIFSA agreeing to increases above the inflation rate for the past 3 years with nothing in return. That really, Gerhard, speaks to productivity or the lack thereof within this industry.
Absolutely. It is heartbreaking if you see what's actually happening in the industry, and you almost get emotional when you see, and this is not a story, where employers tell you they haven't taken a salary for months. They live on the bonds of their houses. I address employer groups where an employer, and it happened recently, where I said to him, "Are you a biker?" And he said, "No, I do not have a car anymore." That is in order to keep his business open. Now pass on a 10% with nothing in return to him. And I say that is suicide. Well, that's murder. That's not suicide, that's murder.
How long can he afford to continue this standoff, though? Because if NUMSA is not backing down, who's going to budge?
I think what's going to happen is the following. CIFSA is going to do a deal with NUMSA. And, that's your deal. I recently said in a newspaper, if somebody wants to pay R1 million for a Ford Cortina, that's their business. But as long as you don't expect me to pay it off. That's their deal, do your deal. But the moment you want to extend that deal to us, we will oppose that. And I believe we will successfully oppose that, because we simply cannot, and that's where the problem starts. We were in the same caucus, and then they simply went into a separate caucus, and they're busy doing a deal.
Gerhard, we're going to be tapping into a conversation we had with the head of Ford's local operations in just a bit, and he seemed confident in the social dialogue being brokered by government. Is government getting involved enough? Is the newly instituted Small Business Development Ministry involved to the extent that it should be?
I think there's a lot of politics involved, and you know, unfortunately, when you fight a system, you get a particular name as being a very difficult person. And even that minister, I've written to her, and I invited her to a discussion, offered to meet her. The fact that she hasn't contacted me as yet doesn't necessarily mean something. She knows she's not involved. The Minister of Labour. We've been in court with the Minister of Labour, in fact successfully, in the past, and she should have learned not to exclude NEASA out of any deal. And she engaged with NUMSA and CIFSA. And, you know, based on the figures that the Labour Relations Act requires for an extension of agreement, they will not be successful to extend any agreement without us.
So, yeah, we're almost out of time. What's your next step? So if an agreement is reached, what do you plan to do?
Well, you know, I will make it very difficult for them. I will indeed.
Well,
and I've cautioned them. Oh, yes. Without a doubt. I will not tolerate a deal that they strike to be extended to business. I owe it to 10,000 small and medium-sized businesses in this industry. So they know. We will challenge it. And I believe we will challenge it very successfully.
Let's leave it there. Gerhard, thanks so much for having joined us in studio today. Gerhard Papenfus is Chief Executive at NEASA.